In the annals of history, wars are often marked by human conflicts over territory, power, or resources. But few could have predicted a war between humans and birds, a real event that would come to be known as the Great Emu War of 1932. This peculiar battle took place in the rural outback of Western Australia and remains one of the strangest military campaigns ever fought. The opponent, not a human army, but a flock of emus, giant, flightless birds native to Australia. The humans, armed with rifles, were outmatched by the resilience and speed of their feathered foes. To understand why such a bizarre conflict occurred, it's essential to look at the context in which it happened. After World War I, many Australian soldiers returned home to a country eager to expand its agricultural output. The Australian government offered land to these veterans, encouraging them to take up farming in the wheat-rich regions of Western Australia. However, the 1930s brought tough times. The Great Depression was in full swing, and global wheat prices plummeted. Farmers were struggling to make ends meet. Adding to the woes of these wheat farmers was a natural challenge, an infestation of emus. After their annual breeding season, tens of thousands of emus, seeking food and shelter, migrated inland from coastal areas toward the wheat fields. For the emus, the fertile farmland was a paradise of easily accessible food. For the farmers, it was a nightmare. The emus not only devoured crops, but also trampled over fences and irrigation systems, wreaking havoc on the fragile farms. Desperate to save their livelihoods, the farmers turned to the Australian government for help. The result? A military intervention, the likes of which had never been seen before. At the time, Sir George Pearce, Australia's Minister of Defence, believed the best way to handle the emu problem was to send in soldiers armed with machine guns. Pearce and his colleagues approved the operation, seeing it as a way to support struggling farmers while providing a use for the idle soldiers and surplus ammunition from World War I. The idea of using military force against emus might have seemed humorous or outlandish, but to the farmers, it was a serious matter. Major GPW Meredith of the Royal Australian Artillery was chosen to lead the operation. He and his small team of soldiers were equipped with 2 Lewis guns, capable of firing hundreds of rounds per minute and 10,000 rounds of ammunition. They expected that it would be a quick and decisive campaign, easily dispatching the emus and saving the crops. However, they were sorely mistaken. The campaign began on November 2, 1932, near the town of Campion in Western Australia. Meredith and his men set up an ambush prepared to mow down the emus as they approached, but the birds, as it turned out, were far more agile and elusive than anticipated. The emus would often travel in small groups, scattering quickly whenever the soldiers opened fire. In the first encounter, only a handful of birds were killed, despite thousands of rounds being fired. The soldiers discovered that while the emus were easy to spot, they were incredibly hard to hit. The birds could run at speeds of up to 50 kilometers per hour, darting in different directions and quickly outpacing the military's attempts to aim at them. On top of that, the terrain didn't help the soldiers' efforts. The rugged Australian outback, with its uneven ground and dense vegetation, provided perfect cover for the emus to disappear into the bush. Frustratingly, the birds seemed to have an uncanny ability to evade bullets, and soon they were compared to guerrilla fighters in their tactics. As the days passed, the soldiers' frustration grew. The emus would gather in large flocks, but whenever the soldiers attempted to approach, the birds scattered in different directions, making it nearly impossible to shoot them en masse. At one point, the soldiers even mounted one of the Lewis guns on a truck, hoping to chase down the emus while firing at them. But the truck struggled to navigate the rough terrain, and the emus easily outpaced it, leaving the soldiers humiliated once again. Despite firing thousands of rounds, the soldiers found themselves achieving minimal success. In the first week alone, only around 200 emus were killed, far short of the numbers they had hoped for. Meanwhile, the emus continued to destroy crops, seemingly undeterred by the humans' efforts. The media, both in Australia and abroad, soon got wind of the absurd campaign. The Emu War became a source of both national embarrassment and humour. Headlines mocked the soldiers for being outwitted by the birds, and the operation was seen as a failure. By December 1932, after nearly a month of fighting, the Australian military had to admit defeat. Major Meredith was recalled and the war came to an end. The final tally of emu casualties was estimated at around 1,000, a fraction of the population, causing havoc in the region. Meanwhile, farmers continued to suffer the effects of the emu invasion. In his official report, Meredith lamented the difficulty of the campaign, praising the emus for their resilience and intelligence. "If we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds," he wrote, "it would face any army in the world." The Great Emu War may have been a military failure, but it succeeded in leaving a lasting impression on history. The Australian government abandoned the idea of military intervention and instead encouraged farmers to fortify their fences and implement other methods of crop protection. Eventually, a bounty system was introduced, incentivizing hunters to cull the emu population. However, the emu population remains robust to this day, a testament to the bird's tenacity. The Emu War became a symbol of human folly, illustrating how even the most advanced weaponry and strategic planning can be rendered useless in the face of nature's unpredictability. It also served as a reminder of the importance of considering ecological balance before making decisions that could have far-reaching consequences. The emus, after all, were simply following their natural instincts, unaware of the chaos they were causing. In the decades since, the story of the Great Emu War has been retold in countless books, documentaries, and even comedy sketches. It stands as one of history's most bizarre conflicts, a true David and Goliath story where the underdogs were not humans, but birds. And while the emus may not have been the direct winners of the war, they certainly emerged with their dignity intact, leaving their human adversaries to reflect on a battle they could never have predicted or properly fought. The Great Emu War remains a curious footnote in history, a testament to the strange and unpredictable events that can arise when humans and nature collide.